live from the corner of 75 and 121. Very exciting show. The doctor is in the house. Ludwig, thank you so much for being here, man. You are listening to Dynamics Chatter. I am very excited about today, man. Thanks for coming on. You had no idea what you were about to get yourself into, did you?
No, not really, no.
Yeah, okay, so when did I send you the agenda for like what we were going to be talking about today?
Well, I would say 2 hours ago.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. And 2 or 3 hours ago for me was actually like 5 a.m, right? So,
Right.
So we're and you're actually like the only way we could get this done was we had to schedule it like 3 months in advance, right? Because between my schedule and your schedule, like you're actually doing this on a holiday, so I really appreciate it, man. Seriously. Very excited about this, but just excited about getting together and talking projects, Power BI, and who knows, anything else we decide we want to talk about. The nice part about this, as opposed to some of our summit sessions, is like we can go anywhere we want to go, right? I mean, we don't have to stay on topic, right? So it's always fun, man. But the only other thing I'll say is if Julie from the XUG, if you're out there, you got to stop scheduling Ludwig and Frederick and I at the same time. Okay. Like I really want to go to their sessions. Okay. So please try to break this up. Okay. All right. Well, okay. Ludwig, start. Okay. I got to start with the book, man. You wrote a book. Please advertise the book, sell the book, because that book is fantastic and everybody should have it who's doing anything project wise. So how did you go about even writing a book on projects and project accounting and all that? I mean, how did that even happen? Because that's the first thing I want to know.
Well, I mean, I was basically starting as a finance consultant, and one day my boss asked me to start with projects because they had nobody to do projects.
Okay.
And I was kind of stuck because I had no clue how to set up this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I had a bit of the Microsoft guidelines and kind of documentation, but working through them was really hard. So I started to do my own documentation.
Okay.
And this documentation was growing and growing and growing. And then one day I was talking with a friend who said, hey, why don't you publish that? Because many people have the same issues, the same questions. So I decided, okay, make a book out of it and publish it. And that was basically the whole background for that.
Okay, and what I'll do for everybody is I'll go ahead and put the link to the book. Is it still in print? Are we still selling it? Like, is it still out there? Like, do you have 150 copies at home somewhere just lying around?
No, you just have to go to Amazon.com and then Google the name, Google my name, and then you will find these books.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think a lot of people recognize the name because most of the time you beat everybody to the comments on the AXUG site when people have questions. I think you're like you single-handedly like answer probably more requests than anybody any two people I know, and I just want to thank you on behalf of the AXUG, man, for doing that. It's good, man. The only time I can beat you to a question is when you're asleep and I'm awake. So you gotta let some of the rest of us have some of those questions, man. So, but I really do appreciate it. But I had to ask you a question because I ran into this the other day. Have you ever had a problem or stumbled onto something? I had a problem the other day with committed costs, and I started Googling. Okay, I started started doing some research. And basically, I ended up figuring out the answer. But the reason I figured out the answer was because I wrote a post like in 2016. Like, has that happened to you? Like where you're struggling and then you find the answer and you realize, oh, I actually wrote the answer to that.
Yeah, I saw that. That is sometimes really helpful because you cannot remember all the things, especially when Microsoft starts to bring out new features and functionalities that quick. So they have really a big turnaround with the functionalities that we have available, and it's impossible to remember everything. Yeah. So I also checked my books and the things that I wrote.
Okay. Well, so Ludwig, I mean, tell me about your last question before we jump in, but just tell me a little bit about your background. How long have you been doing? I mean, because some people don't know you. How long have you been doing D365? I know you're an MVP. I should have introduced you as MVP, Ludwig Reinhard, but I didn't do that. But tell me a little about your background and kind of how you got into this community.
Well, basically after I finished university, I tried to become an auditor. I really wanted to become
I did too.
finance guy.
I was a terrible auditor. Like I still really don't understand auditing. But yeah, no, I did the same thing.
Yeah. So that
So accounting background then? Accounting background? Is that where you came from? Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's where I come from. And then I applied in a, I would say, mid-sized auditing company here in Germany. And suddenly they told me, well, we have here a new division called Dynamics AX, and we need somebody there. Why don't you join this part?
That's awesome.
And that's where I ended up in this area. Yeah.
And how long ago was that?
It was around 10 years ago.
Okay.
So I'm doing this for 10 years now.
Okay. So I see in a lot of conferences. Like, are you doing a lot of implementation work, and are you like what kind of work are you doing on a day-to-day basis? Like, I mean, how do you split your time between training and implementations, or how does that work?
Well, at the moment, I feel more like a fireman, a firefighter.
Yeah.
Because there were some kind of changes in my organization, and there are a lot of projects where they need some help, and there's always a bit of finance involved. So they sent me here and there, and for the last half year, I'm more like a firefighter than a project consultant.
Yeah, no, I got you. I've been doing that for 10 years too. I joked with somebody the other day. I go, I'd really like to start one of these projects like in the beginning, right up front. I feel like I'm the guy that comes in later. So, but all right. Well, today, man, you just found out a couple hours ago, but basically what we're going to do today is I did we did a blog like this with Jamie from MCA Connect. He was an inventory functional expert, and we really kind of walked through kind of the core pieces of inventory, but then we talked about Power BI and how that could kind of enhance our experience. We're going to do the same thing with projects, and you were the guy I wanted to get, and we had to wait a couple months, but like really, I feel like some people don't ever go through the life of a fixed price project, and really that's my goal for today. So anything you want to add? Anything that so we're starting. So like let's say that you've got somebody out there and they are just starting out this process of trying to learn projects, because not every D365 consultant works projects. I mean, there's probably only one out of every 5 maybe implementations. And then if you're not in a vertical that does projects, you may never see it, but it's a completely different implementation. It's a completely different way to approach ERP, I think. And like, how would you recommend people getting? Where would you start?
Well, when we start using the project module, we always start with something small, and we try to make this module kind of attractive, because many companies, they have always a kind of fixed asset. So we say, okay, you have always construction in progress, so why don't you use the project module for that? And that's usually a kind of starter for us to see and learn with them how to use the project module. And then we add on. And then we say, okay, we can do some kind of time and material projects. And then if they really want, then they can do fixed price projects, which many people are a bit afraid about. That's at least my experience, that a lot of consultants shun using this kind of project type. But it's, I think, not justified. If you're familiar with these things and if you know how to do the setup, that's something pretty nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I always tell everybody when you start doing projects is if you're doing a non-project implementation, like the finance team can kind of sit over here, and the production team can kind of sit over here, and maybe we get together on like posting profiles and maybe a little costing, right? But when you're doing projects, you really got to do, I think, a lot more cross-functional modeling. You really got to, and it really comes down to the business processes and kind of where somebody ends in a project and where somebody begins. And really, you got to focus on the people. That's kind of where I always start. And a lot of people, you also have to be patient, because like I just happened when I got out of school, I was working in property accounting. Like I didn't know how to do accounting without a project, right? So like I had kind of the other way, but I just always tell people, like, everybody's got their own speed, everybody's a little different, but I like that idea of starting with capital projects. So all right, well, hey, let's jump in. We're gonna take a quick break. We're gonna jump into an environment. We're actually gonna go end to end, look at some projects. We're going to see how fast we can do that. I'm going to ask Ludwig all of the most difficult questions that I have, because I got a whole bunch of them. Can't wait. He's sweating over here. And then we're going to look at some Power BI throughout the process. But hey, thank you, man, for coming. Thank you guys for joining us. You're listening to Dynamics Chatter. Welcome back to Dynamics Chatter, where we're going to jump into some real project accounting stuff. We're going to try to walk end to end here, and we're going to see how quick we can do this. It really just depends on how much I sidetrack Ludwig through this process. So Ludwig, as you got in the agenda 2 hours ago, I went ahead and created a contract, a fixed price parent, and some children. Okay. So here we go. This is where I'm going to hit you with a few questions. And hey, and please throw those questions. Throw the questions right back at me, because that's what I actually find to be fun. And this is just, when we get to ask each other. Like, I love asking other people hard questions, because most of the time people are asking me. So, for me, when you're kind of starting out in the process, like, when do we create a project? So when do you generally find people actually going out and creating a project? Because, in this scenario, we're going to create a contract, create a parent project, and create some children. But when do you see this actually happening?
Well, that's a big question in every project, because it's what I experience is this is always a kind of different thing. The question, when should we establish and create a project? The thing is, some companies, they work with a kind of proposal that they make for their customers. Others directly create the project, but then create a lot of sub projects. So it really depends on the company, and also I think the kind of consultants that you have when the project is created. So there's no one go solution for everybody when you should set up a project. I think it really depends on your company and industry.
Yeah. I know that's all. I always joke that, day one goes great. We're all very, very happy to be there. And then day two, we talk about, okay, when do we create a project? And that's when the train comes off the tracks. So I think that's really important to really know kind of when you're doing that, and also just who the key players are. Because what I find is, like, you kind of have a group of people who are maybe in estimating, who are kind of on the quote side and all that, all the way to the project managers who actually really have to do the work, and then people who actually have to execute. Like, it's really kind of a balancing act there. And so next question for you. I've got a parent here. Okay, so we created a contract, create a parent. Okay, and then I've got 4 children. I did a 10% down, 20% design complete, 60% when the work is done, and then once we get final sign off, we get another 10%. Okay. For consultants out there, one tip I can give you is, and I think Ludwig really said, is, like, do a simple project first. Like, I probably have never created project structures this simple, but at least give people a frame of reference when you go through this the first time, and try to go through it end to end, because if you're just doing bits and pieces, it's really tough. But Ludwig, talk to me a little bit about, like I always kind of have some struggles with with children and grandchildren projects. Like, what's kind of your philosophy there on children versus parents, and kind of how we kind of do this structure?
Well, try to keep it straight. So don't create too many sub projects. I mean, here we have a main and one sub project level, but don't go to 4, 5, or 6 level, because this makes it really hard tracking the whole project and the costs. I mean, if you make 2 or 3 levels, that's already sufficient. But if you want to go for more, I think you really need good arguments to go that deep.
Yeah, and you said it really nicely and professionally. What I would say is, like, if you want to go to great grandchildren or even grandchildren, like you got to fight me first. Like, you have to give me some really good reasons why that makes sense. Okay, because, like, you really do lose the visibility. So just real quick, I was going to touch on a couple things on our projects here, which we got this parent, and basically, like, there's a lot of different ways to structure your project. But I did this purely by kind of the project plan. If we think about implementations, like, we might have a child project for education, and a child project for modeling. Maybe we have one for CRP. Maybe we do it that way. I mean, so that's kind of how I did it. Other times, when I'm with my manufacturing clients, like, a lot of times we build we build sub project like whenever we start talking production, Ludwig, I always start talking pizzas. Okay, so maybe I'm making 5 pizzas and I've got a child project for each one. Okay, like like talk to me a little bit about maybe different structures of child projects that maybe people haven't really thought about that you've done, because I've done some weird stuff. So
Yeah, well, what I have seen in a couple of companies is that they organize it kind of by customer group. Others do it based on regional criteria, such as offices they have in different countries and such kind of things. The thing is, don't go down to the individual level. So you mentioned that you created a project for each product that you create. I think that's not right. That's too detailed. You should
well,
always find something that belongs together.
I lost that battle, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, I mean, I didn't necessarily want to go down that path, but that was the path I ended up down. So,
Yeah.
but no, I'm with you. I'm with you there.
Well, I
That's
mean,
good. That's a good thing.
at the end of the day, it's always a kind of thing. How can you analyze that? I mean, if you even if you go down 5-6 levels, technically you can do that. But then at the end of the day, what you're interested in is how the hell do you get the data out? How
Right.
can you analyze the whole thing? And then
Which is my favorite part.
yeah, and then you will quickly find out that you get stuck if you
Yep.
make it too complex.
Yeah. You also got to be careful, because I get a lot of people who want to invoice at a certain level and they want to do costs at a different level. And you can get really out of control. It can get really out of hand. Like, so I always say, keep it simple, people. Just keep it simple. Because you've got guys with time cards who need to charge time, and to be honest with you, like, if you give them 57 different grandchildren to pick from, like, you're probably not going to get great data. So you got to really think about the process. So okay, so pushing on here. A couple of things. One, please don't start your projects with zeros. Okay, this is the demo environment. This is already driving me crazy as I was setting this up, Ludwig. Okay, and also the sub project ID got me in trouble because of the format. I've got a dash with my financial dimensions. That's going to kind of cause me some problems when I get some other places. So one more thing I was going to highlight here is dimension. There is a new setup in D365 on the financial dimension, that a little checkbox. So when you go create a project, it will go populate the dimension on there for you. That is super nice to have. So have you used it yet, Ludwig?
Yeah, that's really cool and a
Yeah.
big improvement compared to the previous versions. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So so we have this project. Okay. And one of the big things that we always talk about, Ludwig, is we're going to start off today talking about forecasts and budgeting. So in your experience, and even to this day, I really don't have a good answer. But talk to me a little bit about when I create a forecast and when I might want to create a budget for these projects.
Well, that's a difficult thing. Maybe we can go to the forecast configuration where you can take a look at the different models that we have.
Yep,
This
no problem.
might help a bit.
Let me go to you want me to go to forecast models, right?
Yeah.
Oh. Do you want me to go to parameters, or did you want me to go to where we create them?
Where we create the different models.
Okay. Yeah. See, this is what happens when we get two finance consultants on the same call, Ludwig. So it's either going to be great or it's going to be a disaster, one of the two. So, all right, let me go here. So, all right.
Yeah, and if you create a new one here, you should see you just reset them. Yeah, okay. So here we are, and that is the thing that puzzled me a lot the first time I saw this, because on the top we have what we call current forecast, and this kind of thing is kind of forecast model. But then if you scroll down further, we have the budget, what they call original budget, and that is also a kind of forecast model, but it's used for budgeting.
Yep.
And if you look at the parameter, then you can see that this is stopped, so you cannot modify or change this somehow. So the first thing to realize here is that we have forecast models and budget models, which are also called called forecast
Yep.
models, which is a bit confusing. But if you go back to the project form or the project where we have been, then things should become hopefully a bit clear. Yeah, here we are. And in the planning section, we basically have two different elements. So somewhere in the middle part, we have what we call forecasts. So you have an hour forecast, expense forecast, item forecast, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one way how to record forecast or budget values. And then you have the project budget, right? And they're kind of linked to each other. And we have, at least I worked in a couple of projects where we only use project budgets, but I also worked in other projects where we just used forecasts.
Yep. Yep.
How is it in your, what is your
No,
experience about?
you know, like so, yeah. I mean, generally speaking, and this isn't like I've done a lot of weird things with forecasts to meet requirements. Like forecast is kind of a nice thing to have, and because I can do a lot of stuff with it. But generally speaking, what I've used it for is my operations folks have really used the forecast. Okay. And
Yep.
in my finance and accounting team's kind of guiding principle was the project budget. It kind of gave me two places to operate. But the thing I try to I remind everybody from a reporting side, and we'll take a look at that here in a second, is that regardless of whether or not it is a budget or is a forecast, which there are some different pieces of functionality, there's some workflow, there's some other things, but regardless, it's still just, for me, at least from a reporting standpoint, it's still just a bucket of cost against one of those models. It's just a different model. Okay, so like I have people who are like crazy forecast driven. Okay. And they love, I mean, they love to set up forecasts every other day. And I've got some that never touch it. Okay. So it's really key. What you really need to have, those, you got to have something really to run revenue recognition against. And we'll look at that here in a second. But Ludwig, I got a little surprise for you here, man. I went in, I'm gonna show the people how to do a little bit of an upload here. I created a little forecast upload. It's just a lot of people get intimidated by the forecast and some of the work that has to get done. But it's I always try to tell people it's really not that bad. I mean, loading forecast is actually one of the easiest things to load into D365 as long as you have everything active and in place. So real quick here, I'm going to kind of go through and we're going to connect up to the add-in here, and I'm just going to load these forecasts through. So Ludwig, do not worry. I've already tested this a couple times, deleted it out, and put it back in. So we should not have any problems, but we will. I'm already kind of turning slow here, so we'll see. Stuff.
Yeah, the nice thing is this Office add-in actually with D365, because it's now really easy to get this data into Dynamics rather than entering all this data manually, and that was a kind of hard work or almost a nightmare in the previous versions.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't. I mean, I don't know about you, but I loved the old Excel add-in. I mean, did you not use that? I mean, that was such a great tool. I'm joking. I'm just joking. That tool, man, that tool got me in a lot of trouble. So I really do like the new Excel connector. It's really nice. So, all right. So I'm gonna take what I got here. Okay, so I got expenses in blue. I got hours in orange. Right. The thing to remember, guys, and I try to preach this from day one is when we're doing project transactions, everything's got to have a project and it's got to have this thing called a category. And we'll have the category discussion here in a minute, Ludwig. But what I always try to remind everybody is that a lot of people would love to have everybody would love to have a golf architect category that they could charge labor to, they could charge material to, they could charge expenses to. Okay. The problem is your category breakdowns are either hours, items, or expenses, but they can't be both, or they can't be all. So even when we're loading forecasts here, I'm actually loading hours and then I'm loading expenses. Sometimes I have people who load just expenses. They'll load kind of a higher level number. It really just depends on what kind of data you have and what you want to do with it. I always ask people, hey, a lot of people want to get crazy and upload stuff. I always say, okay, that's fine, but what are you going to do with it? What kind of value does that give you? Because if you can't justify the value, then maybe we need to rethink our process. So I'm going to go into my raw hours here. We're going to go over to the hours of the forecast. All right, so probably just overwrote my Control Z. Gotta love Control Z. New year. You got to be careful with this too, because I have overwritten forecasts probably more than any two people you know, Ludwig. So you got to be really careful when you're doing this, because if you do put it like over those other records, you will wipe those out. Like you will delete out those other records. There's really no, like, unlike a journal, there's really no validation with this. So you got to be careful.
But I made the experience that most users that I work with are actually better in Excel than I am. So I never have a problem with all these things.
I'm a backseat driver, man. Like I'm an Excel critic, so I can't help it. But by the way, Ludwig, I put all of these uploads into the EAX original. So that was the forecast that I used there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're going to upload this. Now you got to remember, when you're doing this, you may have one group of people creating the project. You may have one people putting forecasts on it. You may have another group of people who actually do like billing rules and invoices. You may have a whole other group who are in charge of labor. So you got to remember, like, not all of this, like, one of the big mistakes is a lot of people, like, not all of this happens like in a box. Like it doesn't just happen by one person. So you got to really kind of take that into account, especially as you're implementing. Really important, I find. All right, so let's do this. Grab the other expense here. Okay. Ludwig, I can tell you're really excited about my upload here, right? So if you're anything like me, and really for everybody out there, like I find uploads that work, especially in the new world. I find these work, and then I save them. I save them forever. Okay. I'm not going to be like you, Ludwig, and write a book. Okay. But I save them and keep coming back to them because they work. So if you find something that works, keep it around. Or you can do what I do, which is steal from Ludwig when he comes out with a really good blog article. So that's the other thing I try to do is steal from my betters. So all right, so I'm going to upload this, and here we go. All right, and I jinxed this here. So I think my issue is yeah.
So what does it say? Okay.
Okay. So remember how a moment ago I told you, hey, by the way, like on my sub projects, I used a dash. Usually I use a dot, but the demo was already set up. So one of the things I ran into is when I'm trying to upload these, it's not letting me because it doesn't recognize the dash on the end. Now I thought that I could put that in italics but that didn't work for me either. So I just cheated and just went to the parent. Didn't really care about the forecast and the financial dimensions there, but yeah.
I think you have to use a backslash or something, but there's something stated on I think Microsoft Docs.
It's actually on my error message, but that did not work for me either. So when I was doing it, but it was also 4 in the morning when I was doing it. So there's a good chance I messed something up when I was doing that. All right. Okay. So we're still in what I call the planning stages. Okay. So the next piece that we're gonna speed through here is we're gonna go ahead and put our fixed price, put our billing rules on these 4 child projects. Okay. I'll be 100% honest. I have absolutely no idea what forecast I just loaded, Ludwig, so forgive me. Okay. Yep. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and we're going to go ahead and go to our contract, and we're going to load we're going to put our billing rules on here. Now I'm probably doing this out of order, but when I'm doing my first run through, I always, for whatever reason, I always like to start with cost and then go to billing rules. But a lot of the times we're doing these billing rules first because we've got an assigned agreement. we know we know what the fixed prices are going to be, and then we go from there. So Ludwig, any preference about do you have a preference on a type of billing rule you like to use?
No, not really. But what I experienced is that people find billing rules sometimes a bit difficult to use. Once they are familiar with invoicing, and then they should use billing rules instead of invoicing each project, they sometimes get a bit confused how to use them.
Sorry, say that one more time. Say that one more time, Ludwig.
For example, you can create invoices and invoice proposals for each of your sub-projects. But on the other hand side, you can make use of these billing rules, which makes the setup and the configuration of the invoicing much easier. And
it's all about having a process. Yeah, I mean, it's all about having a process. Is all what I say. One of the ones I like to use is just kind of just depending on your requirements. What personal, I actually like using the unit of delivery. And one of the reasons I like that is because it gives it one flat level. It kind of makes it two-dimensional, so it kind of gives visibility. It makes visibility a little bit easier. So, all right, we're going to say 10% down. All right, and I'm going to make this easy for today. We're just going to do a quantity of 1. All right. Put the project on there. All right, so we're going to do. All right, see, did I miss anything? My financial dimensions came in okay, which is always good. I always recommend everybody check that. Just make sure your financial dimensions came through. Make sure something didn't happen to your sub project in the in the meantime. But another one here. Oh, your unit must fulfill that. All right, Ludwig. I'm only going to bore you with 2 of these, sir. So.
That's okay. I mean, you always
just want to give everybody a taste of this.
People always run into issues when they see it, so it's good that you demo and show them how to set it up.
So I cannot remember what I did. 20%, was that the next one? I think it was.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and most of the time my billing rule 20% would never follow my child project that closely. Like I just try to do it with the first one so people get a really good understanding of kind of one way I'm kind of driving them to where that the setup might work for them as far as making your children more of a phased approach. All right. 20%, I got it right. Cool. All right, everything looks good there. All right, we'll do one more. We'll do the delivery. I'm gonna cheat and just do all unit delivery here. We won't do a milestone. Don't forget the quantity, by the way. That'll always mess you up.
Yeah.
All right. Go and save this. All right. So we got some billing rules. We've got some. So like at this point, I always kind of take a pause and say, hey, okay, we have our expected revenue amount, and we have our and we also now have what we expect that to cost us. Okay. This is kind of a good point, all right? And this is kind of where we switch over from more of a planning phase and more of a getting ready to now we're actually going to do some real work. One of the big problems I have, Ludwig, and I don't know about you, I just get a lot of people who don't have an approved project and don't have like this approval yet to go create one, but yet they're already doing work. And they kind of get out ahead of themselves. Like I always tell people, like, you got to create a project to have costs, like whatever that looks like. Okay, so maybe you do something with children there. There's a lot of different things, but yeah, that's just kind of and that kind of gets me into the next piece, which is our kind of looking at the status and the stages. Any advice on stages, man? Because this one always gets me, man, as far as like, how many stages I should have and what that should look like.
Well, I mean, what I like to have is always the created stage, because I noticed that some people always directly want to start a project and put it in process. But then the issue is that many times the setup is not complete. They miss something and they record already something, and then they have to get it fixed and corrected. So it's always good to have an initial stage that allows you to do the setup correctly before you actually start posting something on a project.
Yep. Yep. The other thing I like is a lot of times, like I think the last 3 clients I've had, I've had an in-process stage, okay, and then I've had an in-process no timesheet, okay, and because I have a lot of guys posting labor, okay, it was a great way because they didn't want to close the project down because they still had purchase orders and maybe they still had some production orders, they still had some item journals that were coming in, whatever, but the labor had stopped, so it was kind of a great way to kind of turn it off for the hours journals that were coming in, but be able to leave it on for, say, like POs that were kind of hanging around and that kind of thing. Inevitably, cool. Inevitably, if I give people like I think the 8 or 9 stages out of the box, they're always going to want 6 more. And I actually created this one just for the purposes of our demo today. It's called sort of finished, right, Ludwig? Have you ever had this stage before?
No, we had a kind of preliminary finish, but in kind of German language, which was, I guess, something similar to what you have here.
Yeah, basically my joke with everybody is we have a finished, and then they want me to have a finished, and then they want me to have a, okay, we're actually really finished now, right? That's like, so really, that's always kind of fun to kind of figure out how many finished stages people want. Okay, Ludwig, so we're at the midway point, okay? And basically at this point, we're kind of, I kind of view us going from the planning and the project management stage to like maybe more of like the people actually kind of doing the work and really grinding out the whatever the labor is, material is, et cetera. Maybe we're moving over to purchasing. So we're gonna go ahead and change the stage here. Normally, actually, I like to put it in estimated or in estimating when I'm kind of loading budgets and that kind of stuff. But for the purpose of the day, I'm gonna go ahead and push this in process here.
Yeah. You know what I like from changing the stages here and the functionality that you show is that you can just change the stage for all of the sub-projects that you have.
Yep.
But what is still a pain point is if you have multiple projects like the one that you have currently, and you want to send or change the project stage to finished
Mm-hmm.
for all of them, then you have to go through each of them. So that's still not something perfect. And
it's just point. You're talking about that last step, right? The last step to move to finished, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and also there's probably a good chance that like based on the time lags and what have you, that the first 2 children might be open and the last 2 children might not be open at all due to the timing and the nature. Like we're probably still working on the design of whatever we're doing. We're probably not, starting the actual task. But I went ahead and opened it all up. Okay, so all right. Okay, so Ludwig, if I dropped you into this project right now, okay, and you needed to figure out, man, we've done a lot of stuff here. I got a parent, I got a few children, maybe I got grandchildren, I don't know. I did something with a forecast, but I'm not really sure. Like, give me your best place, or maybe your 2 best places to go to kind of see what our current position is on this project.
Wow, that's a kind of difficult thing to answer, because what you can do is you can click on the parent project and then make use of the controls that you have. So you have a couple of controls, and then let's say you use a cost control if you have something recorded, or the project statement. So these are very common forms. And then you have kind of couple of parameters. You can choose some forecast models, and then you have to hit calculate.
I have no idea what I dated any of that stuff, so I'm going to go ahead and push this out all the way to the end of the year. Normally I just hit T and tab. Key thing here, don't forget to hit the include sub-projects. There's nothing worse than being in front of 50 people and you can't figure out why you're not getting anything, only to realize you don't have that box checked, okay?
Okay, good.
Yeah, now I've only got the fixed price turned on right now, so because that's the project we're on or whatnot. So, but yeah, this would work for other projects as well.
Well, that's what you kind of get if you make use of these controls. But it's really hard to get a good analysis and overview of your project, especially if some additional projects and the structure changes later on. So you're kind of stuck with that.
you're being kind of nice. Like you're saying it's hard. I am actually going to go out and say it's impossible. Okay. Like I'm going to go that route. I just think it's really difficult to try to manage your project from these control screens.
Yeah.
Just yeah, and really like if I come here now, I you know, kind of goes back to our category piece here, but I can then come and drill down and say, okay, what are my hours transactions on this here? So we're going to take a look, and basically what we're looking at is we're looking at the forecast that whoops, sorry, I was looking at the actual cost. I meant to look at the forecast there. Let me go to the original forecast, and we'll look at the what do I got expense? I'll look at the expense. So we're looking at the forecast that I just loaded. So here's those 4 lines I just loaded, and you can see that they're there. But it's tough. I mean, it's tough to see what the categories are. It's tough to see what your overall position is. And it gets really tough when you're trying to invoice and you're trying to actually have real costs rolling through. So,
Right.
all right, but let's keep pushing forward, man. We got a forecast. I didn't know the budget, but like we have some revenue. We have some potential revenue on there. So let's talk about categories. Let's talk about cost that goes on that cost, or as we like to call it, consumption, right? That goes on projects. So I always say there's items, hours, and expenses, right? We can talk about fees later, but go ahead and break down which one you like to start with. Like which ones do you generally start with? I'm just curious because
Well, we usually start with the groups, the category groups, and
Yep.
configure some. But to be honest, most of the time, I would say in 75 to 80% of the projects I work with, we just use the basic ones that we need. So we set up a category group, should be, yeah, this one. We just set up 3 or 4, one for item, hour, expense, and fees, and that's it. But if you look at the demo data that you have here, you have a couple more. Well, I don't like to set up too many of these groups, but I would rather like to have the accounting at the individual category level. Well, maybe that's because I'm an accountant and I always want to track the categories on a separate account. But that's what I always like, to have each individual category posted on a separate account. I know some people don't like it and say that's not necessary because we have this grouping here. But from an accounting and financial perspective, to analyze the data, it's easier if you have a one-to-one relationship between your accounts and the categories. So
yeah, if you do an implementation with me, you don't really get a choice, to be honest with you. Like I'm gonna really push hard for you to have one project account to one category group, and on top of that, we're gonna lock those accounts down. The only way you're gonna be able to hit that account is gonna be through that project. That's the only way you can keep your subledger really in balance. So
yeah, especially if you want to reconcile later on projects and GL, it's a good approach having separate accounts here. Even if you have a lot of them, it makes life so much easier.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Okay, so I always find trying to diagnose like what categories I need to be one of the most difficult and one of the most important things. Like, you got any tips? You got any? And really, just for me, if you have any tips for me, like how you get there, because you really don't want to have 9,000 categories, right? But you also don't want 3 either. And we're actually talking about going down the next level here. So we're going to go down to the category level here. So I'm in the product categories here. But I mean, any words of advice? Anything that might help?
Yeah, well, what I always ask people is, give me the project statements that you want to use and the things that you want to analyze. So if you want to analyze here some kind of flight expenses, fuel expenses separately, then set up 2 different categories. But if you're just interested in travel expense as a whole, then you do not need this breakdown. So I always come from the back end and say, show me your reporting requirements, show me what you want to analyze, and depending on that, we try to get a first start with the categories. But it's usually just the first start.
Yeah, and what I always tell everybody is that because everybody starts out wanting like 9,000 of these things, and I always tell people, hey, you're going to rely on AP processors to key in categories on maybe thousands of invoices a month, potentially. Like you really gotta, I mean, you gotta. Everybody wants that kind of breakdown, but are you really going to get what you want with that wide a scope? So I always try to kind of rein everybody in. So it's it's a balancing act. I've done a bunch. I've done very little. So it just depends on kind of what works, what you need in your scenario here.
Yeah, that's true. But if you make too many, people always choose the first one they can get, and then
Yeah.
your data and your analysis is basically rubbish.
Yeah,
So
that's true. That's true on 80% of my projects. Like my last project, our fuel costs, they were like, our fuel costs are way out of whack. It's unbelievable. Guess which category started with an A? Fuel. Okay, like AF was their category, right? So, but what I'm doing real quick right here is I just want to kind of show you guys what I had done for this scenario here. But here's my category group, and I have 3 here. Okay, so this is, like, I'm not a big smart numbering fan, but this is probably the one place where I actually do use a little bit of smart numbering to get myself into a better place. The example of that I always have is like I might have something here for I might have something like golf architect, and I might want that to be an expense category or expense, a hour, and an item. So I might just do 510, but I might put an E, an I, and an H in front of it. Okay, I'm not a big smart numbering fan, but there are times where that really does make sense. So we've got our categories. We do not have time to talk about WBS and activities. Okay, I'd like to say we're tabled out for another conversation, but I don't know. It was tough enough to get this one, man. But really, what I want to talk about though a little bit though is, can you talk to me a little bit about activities? Like I have a lot of struggles with activities and kind of best practices there. In 5 minutes or less, you kind of have a good breakdown on when we should use activities.
Wow. Well, activities is a kind of difficult thing because you have them integrated in this WBS, and then you have an integration into what we call this scheduling and all these things, and then things get really complex. So if you let's go back to our project as an example and to the hour forecasts, and then I want to show you something that might be a bit difficult to explain. So if we just take one of our hour forecasts, I don't know where we have them.
Yeah, right here. You want to go to the hour forecast?
Yeah.
You got it right here. Okay.
So here we have the hour forecast, but then if you see the different tabs that we have general, dates, resource requirement, and scheduling. And then through this scheduling, you have a kind of integration into what you might be familiar with from production. So it's a kind of mix between production scheduling and this hour forecast. So if you're not really familiar with the activities and have not used the project module before, I try to keep it small and simple because this can really get very, very heavy and difficult and integrated with the other modules. So try to start small when it comes to activities. And really think if you need them.
Yeah, because so from my perspective, I generally side on the side of like I'll create another 30 or 40 categories if it keeps me from having to really rely on activities. Okay, that's it's just a personal preference. I can hear a bunch of people throwing things at me right now out there, but it's just a personal preference. The other piece is there is a setting that I always try to make everybody aware of, which is you can make activities required. Okay, so like I can require on transactions that you have said activity. That works pretty good on labor. Where you're going to run into major problems is on production orders. Okay, probably getting too far in the weeds here, man. But where is my? I'm trying to remember. Where's the setup at? Is it under journals here? Oh yeah, so I can require activities on the different tabs. But where it gets into like, so I can default categories onto route steps and onto production orders, but if you're going to require activities, like you're going to have to go put an activity on every single production order. If you have thousands of them, that will be unmanageable. So I'm just talking purely from a reporting standpoint. Like I really think of that as more as a resourcing tool and a planning tool. That's not my favorite reporting tool. That's not saying I don't use it, but I think people have the wrong idea and the wrong approach sometimes with that. So sorry, Ludwig, I'm going on my tangent there right now, but I just kind of wanted to kind of get around that. But hey, Ludwig, do you mind if we just like I'm getting a little bored here? You mind if we just mind if we go take a look at Power BI and maybe just have a little bit of fun for like just a quick minute or two?
Yeah, of
All right, let's do
course.
it. Okay, because like right now, I'll be honest, I have absolutely no idea what the position of our project was. I mean, you sent me to the cost control, right? But even on that, I could see forecasts and I could see, I didn't see any cost yet, but I really didn't see the revenue side either. So really, I guess what I'm trying to articulate to everybody is Power BI. We started using this about 2 years ago. Me and my team, we started using it day one when we started doing proof of concepts and solutioning. And we've used that, and basically we have two screens. We have a screen that has D365. So we may be at a CRP session or a modeling session doing exactly what we're doing right now, booking transactions. But then we have another TV that rolls around the room, okay, that has Power BI on it, okay. We do this because it gives people just such a nice platform to understand success. A lot of people think it's KPIs. A lot of people think it's some sort of executive tool. For me, I use it as a functional tool to gain adoption. Okay. So Ludwig, I thought I might just roll us just for convenience. I'm going to roll us through our Empower process tool set. Here at Empower, we create our own tool set. But the Power BI report I'm going to show you is actually out of the box. I gave this to Ludwig. I gave this to you, a few weeks ago, maybe 3 or 4 months ago?
Yeah, I tested it, and it's really some standard thing with some small, with some kind of smart logic how to combine the different elements, because the standard cubes and Power BI reports don't give you that.
Right.
So it's really nice.
They're not there, by the way. I had to kind of piece a bunch of things together to kind of get it to work. But like with things like inventory, they don't exist at all. Like you don't have anything at an item level that's really good. So this is our Power App. I'm going to kind of go over here to our report. Okay, I named it after you, man. Just wanted to kind of give you a little shout out here on the thing. But I'm going to go ahead and I'll go ahead and go to Power BI and we'll kind of look at it. There. I kicked the refresh off a few minutes ago, and one thing about the out of the box, Ludwig, that's partly kind of a regret is I kind of gave this people out of the box, but like because of the way I have to build it, because I'm using data sources that are meant to put data in and not take data out, it takes forever to run. It is clunky, and I really don't. It's not. I always try to tell people it's not a long-term solution. It's just something that helps people get started. I really want to kind of put that out there. It's not, so here it is. Here's our report. Here's our out of the box project report. Okay. And, this is the moment where I cross my fingers and just kind of hope everything kind of came through like it was supposed to. Right. So, our project was, what project was it? It was project 286, I believe. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So basically, on this, like you get a little bit better view of the world. Okay. Basically, what I've got on here is I've got my contract amount on here. Okay. I've got it up here at the parent level, and I've got it down here at the child level. Let's bring some. I'm gonna go and bring our forecast in. I don't have it in here, but we'll bring it in right now. Let's go grab our cost we just brought in. Yeah, the other thing is these entities, Ludwig, as you can see, I got so many fields in here. The reason is because of, it's just because these are really meant to put data in. They are slow and they are not reliable. I don't recommend them to everybody. So use them to get started, but yeah.
Right. The problem that I have with the standard things that we have here is that I cannot explain the data. Sometimes you get a figure out of the system and then you should explain it to somebody, but you can't because there's no good documentation, and then you have
Yeah.
to drill down into the figures, and
Yeah. Well,
it makes things really hard.
I always joke with people like I'm an expert at this, and I still have like every time I open this up, I still have to go figure out what the heck labor invoice revenue is, and what like these measures that they created. They created them for some cubes and from different reports, but like they don't really play well the kind of the ad hoc world that I like to live in. So, but let me kind of bring this up here. So I think I got the right one, but you never know. Let's see. Let's put the next one, which I didn't. What is it?
We have not recorded some costs against the project, did we?
I was actually trying to grab the forecast numbers, man. So
okay.
I was trying to grab. I just have the 900,000 in the billing rules that we did. All right. Well, at this point, Ludwig, I can't take it anymore, man. So we're gonna have to let's go over to the Empower stuff. I can't do it anymore. I hung in there with the out of the box as long as I could. All right.
Yeah.
I couldn't take it any longer. But which was all of about what 3 minutes, I think. So here we go. So I'm gonna grab these here. I'm gonna grab all my projects. All right. Yeah, so there is my 26. Oh, so there's my consumption number. Okay, so there's that $300,000 of expense that we saw loaded. Okay, looks like I'm just bringing in expense though. I'm kind of wondering why that is, but yeah, I mean, let's see here. Probably got a filter on, but one of my other pet peeves. Oh, that's probably why. So like another thing you have to do is make sure you've got the right model, right? So just a second ago, we were looking at the AX original, okay? If I were to take this off, okay, and I was to actually open this up, okay, you got to be a little bit careful when you're doing this because, like you're saying, like I might have a budget, I might have a forecast, I might have multiple forecasts. If I don't specify the model ID, then I can have I can end up having some bad numbers. Okay, so
right, exactly. Yeah, you have to be very careful with the setup of your forecast models and the naming conventions and for what purpose you use them. Otherwise, you just get some data and cannot explain them.
Yep, but the best part about the forecast models is that if you mess them up, you can always delete them out and re-upload them. You don't have that luxury in a lot of other places, so it's kind of the one nice part. But real quick, another one of my pet peeves. So while I'm here is Ludwig is a lot of people, especially some of my fellow brethren in the pre-sales world, love to show like Power BI and they love to show sales data. Okay, drives me crazy because you got to tell. Are you looking at sales on the sales orders? Are we looking at margin? Are we looking at free text invoices? Are you grabbing just the header invoices? Are you grabbing the lines? If you're looking at the ledger, that could be a whole different thing. Okay, so here I have a rule, and this is the rule that I encourage everybody is you don't get to use Power BI. Well, let me rephrase it. You don't get to create Power BI reports if you don't know where the data is coming from and you can't tie it out. Okay, so that's actually in our Power App why we built these across the bottom here. So one nice thing we did is these are kind of the data sources that we've kind of walked through. But I'm going to go ahead and click on one of these. And as you'll see, it's going to take me right back into the project, the project master tab. So like we try to map all of our data sources full. So we haven't booked any actuals yet, but I think if I book project budget here, this will take us into the forecast page that we were just in. Okay. I'm a big believer that like you don't get to. There's a lot of people who use reports, and then I usually have a core team who creates. You don't get to create if you don't know where the data is coming from. You got to be able to tie everything out before you release it. You only get one chance to be right. Okay. Anyway, but so kind of moving on. Let's if you're up for it, we'll book a few cost transactions and then we'll keep pushing forward. You good, man? You need a break? You need some water? You all right? Okay.
Yep.
We probably lost everybody that was watching us, but other than that, it should be pretty good. So. So what do you want to do next, man? What, you want to do hours, items, expenses?
Let's record some expenses against it, just some simple transactions, and then have a look at Power BI.
That sounds good.
And then compare it with what you can get in the standard cost control forms. So just to highlight the differences.
Yeah, that's not a fair fight, man. That's not a fair that's not a fair battle. I'm just teasing.
In many projects, people just start without Power BI, and then they notice when they come close to the end, to the go live, that they need something to analyze the project, and then it's often too late. And therefore, I think what you mentioned before is the best approach. You have to start with this Power BI from day one. Otherwise, you will be lost and stuck at the end when you try to analyze something.
Yeah, because you're never going to know. And really, especially for projects, we use it a lot to validate data migration. It's become like a huge factor for us, because what we can do is we can actually take the file that you loaded and put it in Power BI, and then we just hit the refresh button and we know whether or not everything came through like it should. So it's a really nice luxury to have. When I don't have it, it's really hard. It's like watching TV that's not HD anymore. It's kind of a struggle. So I'm gonna go to. I'm just going into an expense journal. You good with that, Ludwig?
Yep.
I don't want to mess up your project. I don't want to mess up your project here that we're creating. So the other thing I'll tell everybody is there's a checkbox on the parent project that's really important, which is it flags the parent as a header project. So when I come in here now, if I did it right, that's a big if. If I did it right, we should not see. So you notice you don't see the 286 parent project. That's just a really good thing to have there. So we'll go ahead and book this to the first project here. There's my favorite activity field, but I'm going to go ahead and click this here. Any recommendations on costs, man? Do you set up category costs, resource costs? Like I know I've done it at the role. But I mean, you have any just for a lot of people that are just starting, like what are your thoughts on kind of setting up costing and costs and that kind of stuff?
Well, I mean, if you talk about costs for people that record hours on projects, well, there's not much you can do wrong, because on the one hand side, you have expenses that you record through the monthly payroll cycle. So you pay your people anyway a certain amount, and what the project our transaction is doing, it is more or less just a kind of allocation. So it allocates basically costs from the cost center where your employee is working on to the projects where they spend their time on. And well, if you do not get it right the first time with the cost, then it's actually not an issue from an overall company perspective. Of course, you should make sure that you hit the right costs, but you can adjust this over time and achieve this, how to say, not during the first run. You try to make use of this functionality.
Okay, so I actually have like a serious question for you, because I don't really know the answer to this question. Like, so right now, if you notice, I had a cost price come through, I have a sales price come through, right?
Yeah.
We're doing a fixed price project.
Mm-hmm.
Do we care about the sales price? Like, does that make any difference to us?
No, it doesn't. No.
Okay. It drives me crazy because I hate it. I hate it coming through and showing up on the reporting side, right? It just looks weird. Like I want it to be zero. So I just didn't know if you were like, hey, this is this is really good for this, that, and the other thing. Okay. I wasn't sure if you had any thoughts there. So, okay. So we're gonna book this to expense. This could go to a vendor potentially if we're maybe reimbursing ourselves or we're paying the hotel. But
for this one ledger is fine. Yes. So let's try to get it posted.
Let's see if Ludwig set up the account structures correctly. So, because in this environment that he's never seen, by the way. So, all right, here we go. All right, so it's funny because I always tell people, hey, hours is labor. Okay, like items is kind of stock material. That's kind of you can kind of get out of that a little bit, but so stuff coming from a PO, potentially items coming from production, and then potentially a lot of it's project item journal stuff that is in inventory that we're taking out of inventory and putting onto a project. Okay, Ludwig, any idea how I describe expenses? Any guesses while this is running?
No. No.
Everything else. Okay, that's how I describe it. All right, because it could be everything from like somebody booked something wrong, so we're true it up. It could be a vendor invoice that's non-PO. Like
Right.
the expense side is kind of if something goes wrong on your project, you're out of balance or you're whatever budget or whatever. Look at the expenses first, because generally speaking, that's where you're going to find that might be where you find the weird thing that happened. So, all right, so we got that to post. You want to run over to hours real quick and maybe post an hour here? All right.
Okay.
All right. Hey, Ludwig, have you played around with the timesheet app yet or anything like that?
No, not with the timesheet app. I played around a bit with Flow and these hour journals to see how you can integrate it, and the integration is pretty nice, especially if you want to connect external time recording systems. So you do not have to do a big development to record the times here.
Yeah, we did a really nice we've done a couple of nice integrations with the Hours Journal. We're in the process of like looking at building the Power App. It's been kind of it's been interesting. It's been interesting. I'm such a big fan of the Power App platform now. So it gives people like you and me the ability to really break a lot of stuff. So that's kind of how I describe it. I'm sure I've got tech resources out there going, I can't believe we gave Chad access to the Power App. So all right, so let's see, we got something here.
But what is your experience in your projects? Do people more use the hour journals or the timesheet functionality, or is it a kind of mixed thing?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on really what they're using hour-wise and stuff prior to me getting there, okay, and how invested they are in whatever it is that they've got. I mean, I have a lot of people that just like they're on, whatever timekeeping system and all that stuff they're on, like they're now leaving that because they just have too much investment in that. So in that case, then I'm going to build an interface to Hours Journals, right? I could probably spend the next hour and a half talking about just this topic, but there's two key things that I always find. The first thing is that no matter what you're doing, whether I'm in the timesheet or Hours Journals, like labor and overtime, overtime, double time, the rules are always very difficult to try to manage. And a lot of times people are using other systems or they're doing other things to try to capture that. Example, we don't live in a world where man, I work 40 hours this week, and when I hit 41, I got overtime. I mean, I have a lot of people that like when they work 12 hours that day, when they get to the 13th hour, now they're on double time, right? But if it's Tuesday and it's raining outside and it's a leap year and there's snow on the hill, then they're getting, time and a half, right? And then they're getting meal money, right? That's where the logic kind of falls off the tracks. The other thing you might have is a lot of times I have different facilities that like you can tell they established their stuff like 3 years apart, and they all kind of have a different process, a different system. You're trying to get them to come together. I deal a lot with unions in California. That's I'm not even going to talk about. That's no fun. Like the union piece is just even crazier. So that's one piece. But the thing I always try to remind people, and this is kind of the big thing that I try to get with people on is what I post to a project. Okay, these hours, Ludwig, I don't think I have you set up as a resource, so we'll use me here. But these hours that I post to a project, okay, these are not the hours that I get paid for.
Right.
Okay. And that's a very hard thing for some people to understand. Okay. And what I always tell people is when I was in the consulting world, and these are the hours that I bill, the hours I'm charging to projects. Okay. These aren't the hours that eventually someone will pay me for, because I might have a lot of salaried people that, man, when they work more hours, their hourly rate actually goes down. I mean, so it's just like a lot of people think of this as, hey, we got to get actual costs. We've got to get there, We've got to get that in. We've got to get that in. And like the truth of it is like, that's not how that's supposed to work. So so that's also something I kind of try to harp on.
Yeah, that's right. I always try to get some financial controller in these kind of sessions, because what we are doing here when we post this our transactions is just like an allocation. So you do not get richer or poorer just by posting that. It's just shifting costs from financial dimensions to different ones, or from account A to account B.
Yeah. A lot of times it's I'm debiting a 5-1 account and I'm crediting a 5-1 account.
Right.
And really where the real cost comes is when I bring all that stuff back from payroll and I actually start charging stuff. Okay. I get a lot of people who want real job costs. Like I always tell people, there's no such thing as real job costs. It just doesn't exist. Okay. And what I also tell people is don't trip over. So this may not translate, but don't trip over nickel or don't trip over dollars to save nickels either. Okay. Like a lot of people doing a lot of work, trying to get some guys rate $2 closer to what they call actual. So just you got to kind of temper yourself there. Okay, so we got some actuals in there, right?
Okay, now let's go to our cost control. I want to see the cost control.
All right, I bet you do. And let me do something before I kick over there. I'm gonna hit refresh on a couple of things over here. I don't know if the out of the box one's gonna run because it is terribly slow, but mine runs in about 12 seconds. So let's go over here, cost control. You know what? When in doubt, right, Ludwig? This thing's kind of my nemesis, man, because I can't remember where anything's at anymore because of this box. So I should have gotten the cost management project. I've already given up. Let's go to the projects. We would make a good team because you have great patience and I have zero patience. So I think you would keep me in a good place here. All right. So did you want me to just go to the project, or do you want me to go to the cost control?
To the second sub project that ends with 02, and then hit the cost control, and then now let's see cost control and just hit calculate.
I thought I had to put the 2 dates in, do I? Or no, not anymore? We can test that the next time, right? Everything good? Calculate, got it.
Yeah, so we have some actual costs. That's good, but that's what you can basically get out of the standard.
It just yeah, this pains me. It pains me. It just pains me because I don't know what this hour was. I don't know. So like the other thing I was going to try to show people while we're here, kind of the out of the box piece, is the place most people will drive you to out of the box, and it's really because it's really kind of all we have is oh gosh, where am I at? Let's go to the project statement, Ludwig.
Okay. Yep, that's under control. The first one on the left.
Thanks, man.
Should be project statement. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm gonna try it without the dates in there. That's what happens. Yeah, the big thing is the cost control really just shows you cost. This is gonna at least kind of show you invoices and revenue, and it tries to give you a whole picture, but it takes 2 days and a nice PowerPoint to really kind of understand how WIP and costs and how all this kind of moves. Basically, it's kind of a tough sell.
The biggest challenge that I always have is controlling WIP, because if we are working with fixed price projects, you always have WIP transactions, and tracking them here in this form is basically impossible. So you have no chance to track the WIP really, and you need to build a kind of Power BI model.
Yeah, and on this one, and actually for maybe the last year and a half, most of the clients I've had, I've basically got them to go down the path of expense and stuff on the cost side. Now you can't always get away with that, but depending on the industry and stuff. But a lot of times we'll do WIP on the invoice and the revenue side, but it's been I've had a pretty good run of just expense and things. So, but it basically, here you go. You can see the cost that's hit. I don't think we don't have any WIP on this. Consumption, okay. I get a lot of people who hate the word consumption or whatever. Like what I always tell people is you have capital projects, you have this kind of project. Like when this project posts cost, it posts to the income statement. But when a capital project posts cost, it posts to the balance sheet. Okay. You may have a revenue generating project that posts to the balance sheet. Only one of those things is cost. The transaction that hits the fixed price project, that's cost. But the one that hits CapEx, that's not cost. That's consumption. That's WIP. So that's just kind of the terminology. And for all the consultants out there, I try to get out in front of that like early, and I try to start using the right vocabulary early. I find that really, really helps. When people start seeing, if you've been calling something cost the whole time, and all of a sudden now you're trying to change that, it gets kind of tough. So, good there, man. All right, so you want to let's do some invoicing if you're all right with that.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm at the end of the month, right? Maybe we've completed one of our phases. Before we do that, let's go ahead and take a look at, we'll just kind of see what our position is here overall. Look at all projects. Thought I'd show you something else a little cool here, Ludwig. I don't know if I've still got it set up, but we'll see. Okay, if you notice here, like we do it both ways. So you can get to this screen from our Power App. You can also get to our Power App from this screen. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
This is always my dream, man. I wanted to have a seamless kind of integration between both wonderful products that always operated separately. So let's take a look here and see what's going on. So go to our project here. Okay. One struggle I have with the Power App is the resolution, man. I don't really have much control over what screen I'm on and all that stuff, so it's really kind of tough. So I kind of zoomed in here and zoomed out. But if you don't like that, we just hit the button that makes it big. So we're gonna go to our project here. I could have just searched, but that's all right. We got this here. All right, so let's take a look. All right, so the way we generally do most of our Power BI reports is a lot of people like graphs. Ludwig, I know you love a good map, right? You love a good map, right?
Yeah.
We don't do maps, man. Like not day one, okay?
Okay.
Yeah. I'm trying to build something that helps you kind of see functionally here. So, but now you can see, hey, I've got here's kind of my consumption. Here's my budget numbers. Now I can kind of see what my actuals were. We got kind of you can come up here and see kind of what the consumption is. I'm going to go ahead and come over and look at some hours numbers here, so I can kind of see, hey, I didn't have a whole lot, but there's my 8 hours I just posted, right, in that journal. I think I had the description of Ludwig on there, right? If I come through, we haven't invoiced anything yet, so this should be blank. Got the old reports in here, but basically, yeah. So basically, kind of a much better view of kind of what our overall position is. And really, we could kind of, if I could switch over to the out of the box one, which is still running, I might add. I might show you the other view. Maybe we'll come back to it after we do the invoices. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
All right. So we're sitting here. Got a lot of places we can go. What I think we'll do is we'll just probably go ahead and just probably just click this button. We'll click the button here. If you had a question about an invoice, this button will take you right back to the project. I think it takes you back to the project invoices. I didn't look at it closely enough, but we've got that mapped in. So we wanted to kind of create that two-way thing. But look, so we're gonna go back to, we'll do it the right way. I'm not gonna cut corners here. We'll go back and go to. So at this point, we let's say we got to the end of our. I like to invoice. I mean, it just depends on what invoice monthly, invoice weekly, whatever it is. I like to have a pattern to what I do. Okay, like especially from the invoicing side. Everybody always asks me, like, why do I have a contract and then I have to approve the contract and then I have to do a proposal and then I have to post a proposal and then I've got to check the proposal. Like everybody always asks me, and my answer is like because not one person is always doing all of those things. I generally like right now I'm playing the role of project manager, and I just think this is probably one of the most important things because it goes back to my original message about having a process in place. I'm the project manager, and really this is the last thing I like the project manager to do. I like them to come into their project. They're gonna come into their I'm still on the project, man. I gotta get to the contract, man. I gotta get the contract. Sorry, guys. They're gonna come to the contract. They got their billing rules, and they're gonna go to their contract status. Okay. And the last thing I really don't like my project managers pushing paper. Okay, like they're high-priced people that I don't really want them pushing paper. I want them, building roads and project managing. Okay, so they come in here and they're going to update their units so delivered. They're going to say, hey, this is done. They're going to put the quantity of one in. They're going to say, okay, all right. Some people, I don't know about you, I'm kind of 50-50. Do you ever anybody Ludwig to put this on a batch job so that like once this is out there, like the invoice proposals will run on a batch?
Well, I had a customer who used it, but then the issue is that you create the invoice proposals, and then you have a second or you need a second batch run where you create the actual invoices, and then
Yeah,
you have to make sure that the first one is finished before the second one starts. So
definitely.
yeah, that's a kind of hard thing to do. But to be honest, most of the people I worked with who used the project module, they invoiced on an individual project level, just the way you're demonstrating this here. So that's usually not a kind of mass invoicing tool compared to what we have, for example, with sales orders or something.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
agreed. I usually do the same thing, but what I try, like what I have a lot of people do is everybody wants to be able to just kind of invoice whenever they want, do whatever they, and that's fine. Generally, that's where we go. But I always try to drive them into a weekly process or a monthly process, something where you have kind of this review, you kind of have this control, and really, and what I then try to do is we try to kind of take a lot of the busy work. I try to take a lot of the busy work out of the project manager's hands and put it into kind of maybe younger people's hands, smart people's hands. But these are the people that are going to be your next project managers. Okay, they're the people that you want to groom, and really ERP isn't just about data. It's not just about making sure I've got the right invoice. That's important, but like it's also about the people and about making sure you have a process where they're going to grow, and that's not just data migration. But basically here now I'm going to come in and what I like to do is that person is actually the person coming in and doing they could actually create a bunch of billing roles at the same time if they wanted to, or they could create. I'm just going to create the one here. I just have to remember I have to remember my contract. Hopefully it's the last number in the list. Ludwig, you and I aren't very good project managers right now. So here we go, man. Let's do this. So and the other thing is this is the greatest form ever because it's right down here. And I've spent time in front of like 15 people trying to figure out where that OK button's at. So anyway, so basically what I'm doing now is I'm going to create the proposal. Now, what I like to do is if I have overbearing project managers who just can't stand not doing this invoice, what I will do is I'll give them, like you referenced, you can put some workflow around it. It's like I'll give them some sort of review step here, right? Like they don't have to go create this. They're not going to do it, but somebody could either print them off the list or they could just go out to the queue, whatever it is. And they can take a look at what's in the proposal before somebody else posts it. So if you do have some overbearing project managers, that's kind of a good way to handle it. So
are you using this a lot? This workflow that you can incorporate here in the invoice proposal?
No, about 25%. About 25%. For the people who are very timely about invoice, they do it every week or they do it every month. Yes. They're pretty good with the workflows. It's the people that they get invoiced today, tomorrow, and then not for another 6 months. Like those are the people that I have a hard time getting the workflows to really be of benefit. So the other hard part is just trying to get people to nail down logic for their workflow, right? I mean, I get a lot of people who want to do a lot of goofy stuff with, for this customer, for this project, in this season, with these financial dimensions, we're gonna, gotta kind of, as you said in the beginning, keep it simple. You got to keep it simple, especially in the beginning. All right, so this looks good. The biggest thing, one of the biggest problems I have, Ludwig, and I don't know if you have this problem, people just forget to post this. Like they just forget to hit the post button. I don't know about you, man, but I'll go out here and check, and I got freaking 30 invoice proposals that just haven't been posted. Okay, so
I have not seen that. To be honest, maybe Germans are very keen with the money.
Yeah, no, probably. I mean, it got so bad at one client, I finally just set up a batch job that after it was approved, they just went out and just posted. Like we created a little thing to go post them because they kept forgetting to do it. So, man. Anyway, one cool thing I was going to reference while this is running is with Empower, we basically have created about 60 to 70 of our own entities. Okay, but there's a lot of cool things we can do, and we have to kind of think differently about how we do this, even with the out of the box stuff. But with Empower, we kind of have a weapon. We have a weapon to do a bunch of different stuff, and we can't keep doing things the same way we've always done them. Just to give you an example, Ludwig here, I was going to give you another kind of little surprise here, right? Is we built we had a client that it got later and later and later, and we were still without an invoice, okay, for a modified invoice, right? So they were going to manually kind of, keep modifying, just kind of taking modifying it, whatnot, and just manually doing it, okay? We actually ended up using the add-in, okay? We use the same thing I just loaded forecast with. Now we were able to grab some of our Empower invoicing stuff, which had the information we want. The out of the box one, that's one of the big limitations of that, is there's really no invoicing at all in that data set. But we were able to do that, and basically we were able to come in here, refresh it, kick out the invoice, and once they finally got the actual document, and I had a lot of people who still preferred to use this, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, so just kind of give you an idea. I was working on this one. I'm trying to do something for what do you call it? Cost plus. So I've been working on that here, but anyway, just kind of wanted to just throw something out there. I mean, we got to kind of think differently about what's possible and what we can do. So I do with POs too. I kind of create my own PO form that way as well. So all right, Ludwig.
Okay.
So we've invoiced. All right, let's let me kick this off here real quick. Let me kick that. I don't think the out of the box one's gonna run fast enough for us to do this. Let me just go over here real quick. Yeah, thanks, man. You've been a great guest, man. I appreciate you doing this. We've been talking about doing it for a long time, man. I appreciate you coming on. So, and when this ends, I'm going to ask you all my real questions that I don't want the world to know that I'm asking. Okay.
Okay.
But if anybody out there listening, that I'm sure you have a question, send it to me. And if I can't answer it, I'll send it to the people like Ludwig I know, and we'll get back to you. I get probably 3 to 4 questions a week, man. Good questions. And really, one of the things I do ask is if you're gonna send it, like make them funny. You'll get a better response back. As long as they're good questions and they're funny, you'll get a much faster response from us. So I always I'll forgive anything for smart and funny. So all right, so let's see here. Welcome back to Dynamics Chatter. We had a little technical difficulty with Ludwig. I think we ran out of space on the video recording. So, but I thought I'd come in here and at least give everybody just kind of an overview, kind of a big finish, so to speak, here in Power BI, just to really kind of articulate the value of Power BI and why it's so important. Ludwig and I demonstrated some of the out-of-the-box functionality that exists and how it just doesn't quite do enough. So, and how with Power BI, you really can kind of create the solution you need. And what you're seeing here is our Empower process. We have some IP that we create a Power App that basically surfaces this report. So I thought I'd take you to our Power App, but really I'm just taking you to our Power BI file, whether it's ours or whether it's the out-of-the-box one. But if I come in here to projects, basically you get an overview unlike any other. You do not get this out of the box. You can't see all of these things together in really any one place that's meaningful. Here I'm going to go ahead and change this to our parent project that we've been working on this entire time, this 286 parent. But basically at the top, you can see our parent total, and you can see our child project breakout. So you can see $900,000 contract value. You can see the $1 million budget that we loaded on this, okay, by child. We could look at this by category if we wanted to as well. Don't forget to make sure you've got this filtered down to your model. If you have multiple forecasts on here, you may only want to see one of them. If you don't, you may double up or triple up your budget, depending on what you're doing. But again, I got the consumption, how much cost we've had, how much invoice we had. Again, if I dropped a project manager in on this project tomorrow, they would have a perfect and very easy understanding of exactly where they're at and what the position is. Cost, invoice, contract, hours. Here we're breaking down the hours. We only have 1 hour's transaction on this. So there's your 440 in cost. If you go back to the overview here, I think you'll see that on sub-project number 2, I believe. Yep, which is where we booked it to. Okay. Again, this gives people a fighting chance. It gives them a great view of reality that you don't get out of the box. This is our big finish, and we just want to thank Ludwig. We'll go ahead and jump back over to him now.
Yep.
But man, hey, thank you so much for the time, man. This was fun. anytime you ever need anything, just give me a call. I'm there, man. I'm happy to help. Whatever I can do for you. So I'm indebted to you, man. I appreciate the time. You're great for the community. Great MVP. Man, let me get to a few of those requests though. You gotta stop being so fast there, all right?
Well, I mean, the important story from what we want to transfer here is that basically you have to start with this Power BI from day one, and if you're not doing that, you will be stuck at the end of the project. So
Definitely.
Really take a look at that, and even if we hit the button a bit too fast, I think the main story is take a look at these features and what you can analyze with them.
Yeah, and the other thing, don't just assume it's right. Don't take my word for it. Don't take your consultant's word for it. Make sure that before you deploy it out. And somebody asked me the other day, what's the secret to the Power BI success? And basically, it comes down to one thing, and that's strategy. You got to have a strategy for how you're going to deploy it. The other piece I can always tell you is don't take on everything at once. Okay, don't try to roll out projects, general ledger, inventory, and AP agent all at the same time. Like take them one at a time, get good, bring more people in, keep getting your circle a little bigger, and have a great core team. You got to have a core team, and a core team of functional people with maybe a couple of technical folks, but don't send me 6 technical folks. I want some functional folks. I want the people doing the work. All right. That's the people we're trying to empower. And that's the people that really kind of can make us really successful. So, man, dude, I can't wait. Thank you for helping me with the Power BI. Thank you for doing that. Man, what's next for you, man? Where are you going? What's your next conference?
Well, I will be at the MBA conference. I think it will be sometime mid of June.
Oh, so you're coming over here for that one. I might go now. I've been on the fence. I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do. Plus, we've been really busy. But yeah, I might make that one now, just because anytime I get to go somewhere for a couple of days and just play with Power Apps, like I'm all in. You know that. But anyway. But hey, man. Well, thank you so much. Ludwig, if you didn't see it, we just came out with a very quick episode, our golf episode, where we're trying to find a bunch of cheaters at my golf course. All right. So if you haven't seen that, check it out. Thank you guys every time. This is a long one, but it was fun. Thank you for this. Thank you for the Dynamics podcast, Frederick and Tommy. Love you guys, and please continue to listen to Dynamics Checker.